Okay, I'm seeing red, so it seems like we're live, and soon we'll find out. I'm sure that we are. Good evening, Jim, and good evening, everyone, and welcome into America Disclosing Uncensored. This is What's in the Sky. Tonight, I have a very special guest for you. He is Mr. James Goodall, a military aviation test specialist. He also is a book author and investigator journalist and the Area 51. And we'll find out how far you and how deep you got with that. Uh, and you are one of the people, though, when I reflect into that opening statement that I made, who opened a somewhat of a public investigation into what was going on there in the 1980s. Would that be correct?
Yeah. I mean, I actually, when I was TDY at Edwards Air Force Base in February through May of 1964, I knew I didn't know at the time, and I didn't even know of Area 51, but that was 60 years ago. I actually flew into Area 51 from Edwards Air Force Base in a Fairchild F-27 that the windows were sealed closed, so you couldn't look out. We landed. We're still in the desert. There were 4 buses, 2 on each side of the airplane. We were right next to the hangar. And they said, when you get out, don't go looking around, just walk straight into the hangar. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did. And it wasn't until the 70s that I realized, God, I was in Area 51 and I didn't know it. Because I went from Lowry Air Force Base in Denver to Edwards Air Force Base on temporary duty, TDY, to support 3 programs for Category 1 testing for using ground-based telemetry, and that's where my area was. And when I got there early February mid-February of '64. It was still an exciting place to be, but on the morning of February 29th, one of the leap years, something came in, landed at Edwards, and set off the fire alarm and deluge system, which turned out to be that Lockheed hangar. And it was 2 Blackbirds came over from Area 51. These were the YF-12 interceptors. And when the alarms went off, I had a flight line badge. And I could be over the rocket test site or any South Base. The only place I couldn't go was North Base, and that was CIA, still is. And I went running out where my vehicle was parked, and it was gone. And the billeting for TDYs, we were about 8 miles from the flight line. So I didn't see the airplane. I heard it over the next 10 days. And on March 10th, which was a Tuesday, I had a lot of overtime, and you don't get paid for overtime in the military. You get comp time for overtime. So I had a bunch of days off, and we were sort of a lull in installing the equipment anyway. So on March 10th, I was taking a shuttle flight from Edwards into Hawthorne, California, where the headquarters of Northrop was at the time. And as I'm waiting for it was a Piaggio, it's a gull wing pusher type Italian airplane. I think it holds 12 people plus pilots. I heard a roar down on the flight line, and all I could see was debris being blown across Rogers Dry Lake. And I went running down the flight line, and I looked towards the new tower, which is now the old tower. And on the XB-70 test pad, at first I thought it was the X-15. It was black. Fire was coming out of the rear end almost as long as the airplane, but the people were too small. So all of a sudden I said, hey, we're loading. So I went running back, got in the airplane. We took off right over Rogers Dry Lake. And as we banked over, I'm looking straight down on top of a Blackbird. It's a YF-12. That was the interceptor version of the Blackbird. And they're towing a C-130. They had already shut down the engines. They're towing a C-130 in front of it. And I know how big a C-130 is. And this thing was massive. So when I got back that following Monday, I got I was given a set of orders, and it said the Lockheed hangar. And I walk into the Lockheed hangar, and I'm looking at the back of two Blackbirds. Now I'm an 18-year-old two-striper E3. I went in the Air Force, wanted to keep out of jail, but I went into the Air Force because I loved airplanes. And there was two of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life. And it affected my entire life. Never in my life did I ever even dream about writing a book or even doing research on something until I saw the Blackbirds. And then I went all in. I got out of the service. I got out of the Air Force after a total of 5 years active duty. And in 1968, I sent letters off to the Lockheed Skunk Works, to Air Force, to Secretary of the Air Force, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Air Force Chief of Staff, asking for 8x10 photos of the SR-71 and or the YF-12 in the air. I didn't care if they were on the ground. I want to see them in the air because when they're flying, there's nothing classified that you can see. On the ground, maybe sometimes there is, if you can get up close. And their official policy was not to cooperate. So I started digging. The more I dug, the more I found out. The more I found out, the deeper I dug. And after doing this for 50 some odd years, according to Ben Ritz, this is before he passed away, from a historical point of view, no one knows more about the Blackbird program than me. If you work for Lockheed or you work for the agency, you couldn't ask questions what the guy next to you is working on, or the guy in the next cubicle down, or the next office down. You didn't ask questions. But as an outsider, I didn't have any of those restrictions. And I've always, when I'm doing an interview, especially if it's something that's sensitive and something that was highly classified at one time, you just have to know when to quit pushing for an answer.
Okay.
And when someone says, I can't comment on that, I just go on to the next subject. And then eventually it sort of comes back and they feel more comfortable. And I was able to gather virtually everything I did on the Blackbirds, talking to guys who were actually did the designing the engines, designing the avionics, designing the airframe, the Wyman Gordon on the titanium forgings. I mean, it just went on and on and on. And these people were proud to, tell me what they did into support of the program. And it was fun. I mean, I met with Lou Schock 4 times in his house 3 times, and once when he was goose hunting on Chesapeake Bay. And I gave him the first photos he ever had of the A-12, and he was the first guy to fly it, but it was still so classified, they wouldn't give him any photos. And I gave him a whole stack of them. I gave him about 10 or 12 8x10s. And he was thrilled. He said, I flew the damn airplane. Yeah, he quit because of safety reasons. And I asked him, how come you never flew again? He said, when you fly the A-12, when you fly an airplane that will go 2,300 miles an hour, or 2250 any day of the week, pretty much. This is the A-12.
Right.
Everything else is a piece of junk. It's like, being in a C8 ZR1 Corvette and then go driving a Model T after that. I mean, it's
which you have one of those though, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yes, but you have the more powerful one, the Corvette.
Yeah, I have a C6 Corvette. It's a 2000. It's a 2010. I've had it up to right around 145, between 140 and 145.
Wow, you like speed. You like the throttle. I get it.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's that's incredible speeds when you talk about that. But how, with advancements and everything, and what some people talk about that I've been able to learn and pick up. I mean, Mach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's all about the dollar, right? You can go faster and don't even have to develop a whole bunch better technically, engine wise. But there are ways to influence it with different types of fuels and different types of scenarios like that
Yeah.
as well.
In 1982, 83 timeframe, I was invited to Engineering Week banquet for Honeywell Avionics Division. They developed all the avionics for the Blackbird. And I was living in Minnesota at the time. And the guest speaker, the keynote speaker, was Kelly Johnson. And Kelly's up there talking about the Blackbird, and said, you know the three manned airplanes. I said, I can't talk about, and some of you know about the little airplane that I can't talk about. I said, there's a toy company in San Diego. He was referring to Testers and my friend John Andrews. And there's some smart ass up here in the Midwest that's been a pain in the ass to the Skunk Works. He was referring to me. And he said, as he went on, he said, speed costs money. How fast do you want to go? Today, and this is over 40 years ago. He said, today we have the ability to fly to Mach 4, Mach 6, Mach 8, Mach 12, Mach 16. Speed costs money. How fast do you want to go? And these are manned air-breathing platforms.
Yeah.
So we've had the technology. It's just we didn't have the dinero or the desire to push the envelope that far. But I believe Aurora's flying. That's a Mach 10 or Mach 12 airplane. And we haven't been sitting on our thumbs. I honestly believe that there's about 5,000 people work for the Skunk Works there at Site 10 and Site 2. Site 10 is where the Skunk Works is, and Site 2 is where they do the overhaul in U-2s. And they used to be SR-71 overhaul as well. So there's something out there. There just has to be.
Right.
In the 1990s, there was it wasn't a Google. It was a EROS, or one of the government agencies released a satellite shot of Area 51. And it shows a 27,000 foot runway. And I asked a buddy of mine who had 40 years at the Skunk Works, 10 of them were at Area 51. I said, Foxy, what do they need a 27,000 foot runway for? He said, if your takeoff distance in worst case is 9,000 feet, if you have to abort that takeoff right at, I think it's V1, it takes twice the distance to stop.
Oh, okay.
So
whatever was stopping, okay.
Whatever was taking off on that newly extended runway, which they abandoned a number of years later, because Groom Dry Lake does flood. I just lost track. Oh, I lost track where I was going for a second.
We were talking about the runway being at the length that it was, and we need to place the amount of area for stoppage. And then you said that Groom Lake does flood out at times.
Yeah, but apparently they're not using Aurora, or they're operating at a different location.
Right. Okay.
Probably not in the U.S. I would have to say Alice Springs. It's in the middle of Australia. It's 1,000 miles from anywhere. They can see you coming for 250 miles just by standing on a table and looking. And I mean, you can see the curvature of the earth.
Right.
And it's been tracked. A buddy of mine, he's since passed away, but he was an air traffic controller. He was my roommate in Denver when I was stationed there. and he was in the Air Force 18 years, and finally he was hired on as an air traffic controller at the Bay Area Tracon in Oakland, California. So he had when PATCO went on strike in '81, he's one of only 9 controllers there at Oakland that didn't walk away. He said, "I have 27 years, in this industry. That's the only thing I know. I'm not going to walk away from it. Not for what they're fighting for, which was ridiculous." But in 1983, I'm at his house. This is Pleasanton in East Bay of the Bay Area. And Bob said, the craziest thing happened to me last February. I said, "What happened?" He said, "We tracked a manned air-breathing craft that had a transponder on it so we could track it, going through our controlled airspace at over 8,000 miles an hour. And it had priority over the SR-71 operations." Now, the only airplane in the U.S. government that had priority over the SRs was Air Force One. Wow. This thing had priority over the Blackbird, so it was almost as important as Air Force One. Now, today, Air Force One has no value. Next year it will, but right now it has no value.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Took me a second, but I caught on. I think the rest of America did too. So it takes me back to where when I first started learning about the Aurora and being mentioned through Phil Schneider and guys like that had a little bit of involvement and were doing research also. And a lot of people were like, it couldn't exist. There's nothing. We don't have anything that's like that. But it seems now that it is factual, and it takes a little bit of time for everything to find its way out. Is that part of how disclosure works for us all?
In a way, I mean, the CIA version of the Blackbird, the A-12, Project Oxcart. There can be a worse description of the A-12 other than Oxcart. I mean, if you're a hunter and you go out and you have a 30-06 and you're going to go shoot a deer or antelope or something, the projectile comes out of the barrel between 1,600 feet per second and maybe 2,500 feet per second, depending on the caliber and depending on the weapon. This 120, like almost 130-pound airplane goes through the air every day. It flies at between 3,300 and 3,500 feet per second. 2 miles every 3 seconds, or about 43 miles a minute. And when on its retirement flight, they took off from Palmdale. Air Force wouldn't support the program, the speed run. It was Air Force Systems Command or Material Command that was footing the bill. 972 took off and went over the Pacific, hooked up with the tanker. And about the time they hooked up with the tanker, their fuel gauges malfunctioned, so they didn't know if they got a full load of fuel. The boomer on the tank said that they had X number of pounds of fuel, but his gauges didn't indicate anything. So they took it easy from LA to St. Louis. That was about halfway across the country. And in St. Louis, all of a sudden, the fuel gauges popped up. They realized they had enough fuel to firewall and redline everything. We're not worried about cooking the engines because it's not going to fly again.
Right.
It's going to the Smithsonian to be put on public display. So they firewalled it starting in St. Louis. They went from St. Louis to Cincinnati, and I've driven that a number of times. And they did it in 8 minutes. This is on its retirement flight. So the total time, the official total time was 1 hour, 4 minutes and 22 seconds or something like that. Ben Rich told me that if they would have firewalled it from LA to Washington, D.C. on its retirement flight, the SR-71 could have gone coast to coast in 47 minutes.
Wow.
It takes 5 hours commercial airline flight from LA to New York City.
Yeah.
So and this is the last airplane designed exclusively with slide rules. And you have to have white hair or no hair or be bent over in a nursing home to know what a slide rule is. We didn't have computers back in the 50s, the 60s, or the 70s. You have more computing power in your back pocket than the world had in 1980.
Yeah. How true. I mean, stacks of computers on the floor are now just a little part of this.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. Do you think now, with, as many say, and you probably know this yourself way better than me just because I'm saying it, when we stand in where we were at, say, in the 70s and 80s with technology, and probably we had 50 years and over that put aside already, where we are now with 50 years is probably just mind-blowing, because the enormity and all the outsourcing of different companies that are involved to build these special crafts.
Yeah, well, today, in today's world, one company can't do it alone. So that's why it was merged, and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed merged with McDonnell Douglas, and Boeing. Who did Boeing merge with? They merged with merged with McDonnell Douglas, so it became Lockheed Martin.
Just so much, yeah, and it keeps people disorientated too, where it's so hard to follow anything, except for the only ones that really know are the builders, the engineers that are, savvy enough to be able to put crafts like this together. What was your, out of all of them that you were under, what was your favorite out of all of them?
Out of all the airplanes or all the people?
The airplanes, the crafts.
The A-12. The A-12 Blackbird. Number 2 would be the B-58 Hustler. I saw that when I was T.D. White Edwards. I'd been there about 2 months, and they made an announcement over the base PA system that at 1,300 hours today, coming over from South Base, will be a B-58 Hustler going supersonic on the deck. And it was going to do a simulated nuclear weapons lob where it went into full burner. It went up, and at 25,000 feet, it looked like the airplane split apart. The B-58 went off to 50,000 feet, and they had a smoke generator on the back of the center line pod, and it went up, and you could follow it, and it was about 1,500 feet. They had 2,000 pounds of high explosive and 2,000 pounds of phosphorus, and it caused a mushroom cloud. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I was at a time and a place when they were designed, something new was coming off an assembly line or a flight test docket multiple times a year. You look at all the airplanes that were designed in the 50s and into the 60s. From signing a contract to first flight of a Blackbird was 32 months. The Air Force today can't change the paint scheme in a C-130 in 32 months. The newest airplane that they acknowledge flying is the F-35. I saw the F-35 Ironbird at the Skunk Works in 1988. It's still not fully mission capable. They've delivered over 1,000 of them, but it's still not fully mission capable. It can do the job, but it does not meet the criteria of the original design specification. Wow. Because they have so many millions of lines of code. Ben told me when you're developing a software-driven airplane where everything is controlled by multiple computers.
Right.
He said, you can pretty much figure what it's going to, the final cost or flightway cost of an airplane is by figuring out how much it weighs, empty weight with engines in it, and then multiplying that by $1,000 a pound. It's $1,000, it was $100 a pound, I think it was. And then, but software was 4 times that. So that's why you have a B2 that said, well, it costs $2 billion, $2.2 billion. Well, idiots. It was just the program was signed on and everything was put into into play for 133 B2s. And then the idiots in Congress who have was it rectalitis? Their head's so far up their butt they can't see. They cut it back to 75. Then they cut it back to 45. By then, there were almost 20 airplanes built. So they say, okay, we'll stop right now. So we had a total of 21 airplanes. Then you had the one that they took the first airplane, which was the Spirit of America. That airplane was never supposed to be an operational airplane, but because the number of airframes were down so far, they spent over $700 million to upgrade that airplane to a block 30 configuration. And now they're using alphanumeric designations. Last I heard, they were in Model P, like in Paul. So now the B2, Jim Eastham, who was one of the Skunk Works flight test pilots,
right,
and someone I became friends with. He was just a character. He never thought the B2 would get off the ground. He said, I'm going to be there on his first flight. I'm going to wash an auger in at the end of the runway. And of course, it didn't happen. Thank goodness. But they just, apparently there was another accident on B2. And rather than repair it, they said it's too costly to repair, means that we have the B-21 in production. So we're going to turn it over to DRMO salvage. I don't think it'll come to the to AMARC here in Tucson, but they'll probably use it as a parts bin. And I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if there was they've had a couple of them that have had fires in areas that are voids that you can't get to. And it burnt for a long time before, the Spirit of Washington was one of those airplanes that had a fire in an area that you're not supposed to, nothing's supposed to be there. And for some reason, fuel leaked in there, caused on fire, and then it just started burning. And it burnt for a couple hours. But they were able to put that airplane into status where they could ferry it back to Palmdale, where they could rebuild the airplane, and they did. But I don't even know what airframe was damaged so much. I know that the Spirit of Texas has had all sorts of bad luck on it. He was up on jacks, and something happened, and the airplane slipped off the jacks, and it stuck the jack, the top of the jack, through the wing, all the way through the wing, and came out the top. So I know there was damage done there, and I have a couple shots of the USS Texas. It was their hangar queen, and it was also used a lot for flight tests. And I don't know if that was one of them that got damaged beyond repair. I'll find out, but I just haven't dug into that right now. But,
well, immense amounts of money that sometimes, I guess, are just necessary to further technology and development. So here, this is a little bit going off because you've done so much, you know so many people. I had a few early questions when I said call in. I had so this came up a few times. Do you think that we have technology to take ET home?
Ben Rich said so.
That's why I'm asking.
And,
But
and,
for
and
you,
he
did
was
he ever
he
connect the
was the
dots?
he was a keynote speaker for the aeronautical school, graduate school at UCLA. I think this was in '93. He had been retired from the skunk work for 2 years. And in his prepared speech, he said, today we have the ability to take ET home. Think about that statement.
That's huge.
Yeah. And if you've seen movies, he said, we have the ability to take ET home, but our government will not allow the information to be made public. And he was really frustrating. And in '95, he was dying of esophageal cancer. And I talked to him, I think it was December of '95. He died early in January of '96, I believe. I should know those dates, but I don't. I called Ben Rich. He was at USC Medical Center. He had esophageal cancer from breathing the fumes of the solvents used in putting the coatings on the F-117. Stuff is nasty, really nasty. If you take a whiff of it, if you've said, what was that? You've already been damaged. It doesn't take much to put the hurt on you. But Ben and I were talking about John Andrews and a bunch of other friends that have passed away. And he said, Jim, we have things out in the desert that's 50 years beyond what you can comprehend. And he knows I could comprehend a hell of a lot. And he wasn't referring to Area 51. And he said, if you see movies like Star Wars or Star Trek, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. I said,
well, that's so crazy with all that magnificence that you look at up there and wonder about and try to understand where the sense is on someone saying it's not worth the time or the effort or the possibility it's just too costly or there's not enough fueling stations in between everywhere to get anywhere unless there's a different reality of technology and source that they could power up from somehow through dark matter or other suns and solar or just it's such an expanded amount of immensity of thought you'd have to put into it. So I guess that makes a lot of sense in ways.
Yeah. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
My mind, Bob Lazar. I don't know. I forgot that.
Bob, yeah.
I have 1,000 things in my head all the time. I mean, it's like 15 squirrel cages going full blast. So
Right.
if someone says squirrel, I lose my train of thought.
Okay.
Bob, who I met and knew before he went to work out in the desert, didn't believe in UFOs. And I'll get into that. But let's say this is the universe. You're here, and you want to go here. So you focus your energy, get over here, Dan, from here to here. As soon as you release that, you're there. There's no time interval.
It's like folding time. No, I've heard that theory before, but I've always tried to put my foot into my mind in a way to understand theoretically how they have that ability, because there has to be a different part of an ability, almost like opening a black hole or a portal or something, to be able to collapse that part of the fabric into time.
Yeah. But based on what Bob said, based on what Ben Rich said on 2 occasions, official talking, both in '93 and in '95, we've been there, done that.
Gotcha.
Bob's story has never changed. Early on, now I met Bob Lazar through my friendship with John Lear. I knew John for over 45 years. I've known Bob Lazar for over 35 years. And right in November of 88, on the 11th and the 22nd, they announced the existence of the F-117 and the B-2 stealth bomber. And I called up John in the first week of January. I said, John, says, I'm flying into Vegas. I'm gonna come by your place, pick you up, and we're gonna see if we can go find an F-117. So I fly into McCarran, get a car. I go and pick up John. We're heading up US 95 on the way to Tonopah. And those of you out there who may have had a chance to drive up US 95, about 3/4 of the way to Tonopah, there's a junction called Scotty's Junction. And it's known for, and it's infamous for the fact that there used to be a house of ill repute, also known as a legal whorehouse there. And the guy who was running it failed to pay his taxes, so the federal government took it over, and they ran it out of business because of bad management. I don't know how you could. I mean, the stuff is not going to spoil on the shelf. Well, some of it has. I mean, I've hit. Never mind. I won't get into that. But
yeah, how do you go broke in a business like that? I get it. And there's also another story of something like that, kinda may not have anything to do with this or that, but when they won things, there's a story from within Victoria Peak also of a family, the Noss family, and they had some type of land claim there, and on that land claim they found bars of gold. $2.8 billion worth, and they were trying to articulate the land claim to continue through the military. And I think they were too close to something because the military basically, like what you just brought up and said, somehow they mysteriously lost their land claim and also an enormous amount of gold. So when the military's involved, I'm not blaming or saying, but there is a documentary to the Noss family story. And I think there's one also to the one you just brought up about the ill repute, whatever you want to call it, or the house of horrors, etc. It's really funny how that always seems to tie in on location.
Yeah. So to get on with my story about how I met Lazar, we're about 15 miles north of Scotty's Junction, and an F-117 flies about 45-degree angle over US 95, about 1,500 feet, about crashed the car. We got into Tonopah. That's 200 miles from Vegas to Tonopah. It's halfway to Reno. We get a quick bite. We head out town on US 6, head east 14 miles, and the big sign that says Tonopah Test Range. You turn down that road, you go 18 miles, and you come to the front gate of TTR, also known as Tonopah Test Range. And I, as a reservist or now a retired master sergeant, I can get on any military base as long as it's not a restricted base. Tonopah is, and so is Area 51. So we drove along the fence line. It's public lands, and we drove about 2 miles down the fence line, and you're looking down, and you can see all of Tonopah Test Range. You can see all 60 hangars, all the activity. And I look to the north, and I see a black fuzzy ball with a little white light in the bottom and a small bluish yellow light with another ball with a little white light underneath it. And I figured that's an F-117 and a photo chase or safety check chase. And this is before digital cameras. So I'm shooting with a Nikon, but I'm shooting Kodak Kodacolor 100. So it's a very, very fine grain print film. And I have I have Nikon lenses. As the F-117's coming towards me, as it's starting to fill up my viewfinder, all of a sudden my body starts vibrating. And I said this before, and it's gotten a lot of chuckles. I said, it was like I was a 10-year-old boy seeing a naked woman for the first time. I mean, my whole body, I mean, literally, it was about 60 cycles. I couldn't stop it. So I didn't know if I had any good shots. I mean, I had a broad view of F-117 and the T-38, flying together. And I told John, let's get the hell out of here. Let's get back to Vegas. I gotta find a photo mat, and you have to have hair this color, or be an old fart with a good memory to know what a photo mat is. It was a little kiosk in a parking lot of a shopping center, and you'd go there. You wouldn't even get out of your car. They'd hand you an envelope. You'd tear the top off. You put your name on it, put your film in it, hand it back to them, come back the next day. It's processed. But it was late. It was, I knew we were going to, it would take me at least 2 days to get the images out. I didn't want to bring it home and do it. I was really frustrated, but we're headed out. We continue to go east on US 6. You get to Warm Springs. That's the terminus of the extraterrestrial highway, Nevada Highway 375. So we turned down 375. We stop and have a bite at the Little Alien. First time I was there was 87, June of 87. And we get back to Las Vegas. It was a little bit after 9 p.m. And we get to John's, and John says, I got a new friend, just moved here from Albuquerque. He's waiting for his clearance to be upgraded. He has a job out in the desert doing something. I think you'll enjoy him. So we're at Lear's house, not more than about 10 or 15 minutes. There's a knock on the front door. John goes and answers the door, and in comes this very, very quiet, very reserved, nice-looking young man, and introduces himself as Bob Lazar. He says he's here, he's waiting for his Q clearance to be upgraded. He doesn't know what he's going to be working on, but it could be exciting. And so we were talking, and I told him about my dilemma. So I have this print film of the F-117. I don't know if anything turned out, and I have to wait for a couple of days to get it processed and printed. He says, I have a C41 processing unit at home. I live off of West Charleston. Let's go to my house. We'll get it processed, and we'll pick the best ones and print them up. So let's go. So we jump in his car. We're not more than a block from Lear's house. He looks at me and he says, I feel sorry for that dumb son of a bitch Lear. I said, what do you mean? He said, this guy's from this world famous aviation family. So my God, his dad brought Learjet to the world, not counting all the electronics that he was responsible for developing. And he says, I'm a physicist. I'm a nuclear physicist. If I can't prove it mathematically or put my hands on it, it doesn't exist. And said, and you couldn't put a gun to my head to convince me that UFOs were real. So fast forward to last May, I'm at Bob's place, Bob Lazar's place. And what a lot of people fail to take into consideration with Bob, he has a photographic memory. Literally. I mean, if he's seen something, he knows exactly how to replicate it somewhere else. And there we go, my brain again.
Bob Lazar, photographic memory.
Oh yeah. So I'm up, like I say, I'm thinking about 20 questions ahead. That's what my brain gets screwed up.
Appreciate you here. This is a great way to celebrate a Memorial Day weekend with a patriot like yourself.
That's next weekend, isn't it?
Right now.
Oh, it is?
We're living it right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, did you watch the Indianapolis 500?
No, I didn't. I was out putting a sidewalk in earlier, so I didn't
Yeah.
get to watch
It,
too
it,
much.
it was it was delayed for 4 hours or 4.5 hours. It didn't get over with until almost 8 o'clock Central Time or
Oh, well,
whatever. Yeah, whatever
probably rainy.
Indianapolis is. Yeah, rain. But it was they had 16 lead changes, the most, and I think it was Newhouse won, and he won last year, so he got an extra $480,000 on his winning. Uh,
Wow, nice paycheck.
yeah, yeah. I'd like to
Nice
have.
paycheck.
Yeah,
All right, so
yeah,
tell us about Bob. And he thinks John's crazy with his
yeah,
family's background. His father, the creator of the Learjet and technology.
yeah. And then so I asked him. This is last year. I said, Bob, you remember what you told me when we first met? Says, mean that I didn't believe in UFOs? I said, yeah, that one. He says, yeah. He says, I remember exactly what I said to you. I said, you couldn't put a gun to my head to convince me that UFOs were real. I said, do you believe in them now? He said, well, absolutely. And he's coming out with his new movie. It's a documentary. It's being done out of Montreal. Luigi's doing an incredible job. It won't be like the Jeremy Corbell one, where that was more a promo piece for Jeremy and not necessarily Bob.
Exactly.
And,
A lot of people think that same analogy.
yeah, and I've known George Knapp as long as I've known John Lear, so we go back a long way. But I won't get into that into Jeremy's part at all. But Bob said that he told me about the project he's working on with Luigi Benatelli out of Montreal. And they're using the newest, highest tech computer graphics that you can think of. And he said the replication of the hangar at S4, where the sports model was so accurate when Luigi sent him a finalized clip. It was about a minute and a half long of Bob actually being walked into the hangar where the sports model was. He said it was so realistic you could almost smell. The hangars have a certain smell about them. He said you could almost he said he got goosebumps all over. So there's three segments to this Bob Lazar special that being put together out of Montreal. One is going to be the documentary. They're hoping, and I don't know if they can even pull it off, but they want to have the world premiere at the Sphere in Las Vegas. I don't know if you've seen pictures of the Sphere. It's a huge, it's a huge round ball, and it's video 360 degrees around you, and that's where they want to have the world premiere. And I've been invited. I get VIP tickets for myself and friends, and it's just. But they're going to be coming out with the equivalent of a Franklin Mint model. It's going to be 1/48 scale, so it's going to be good size. And I think it's all metal. And they're going to have the complete hangar with all the support equipment and everything in there will be in there. And that's the second thing. And then Bob said, and we're going to give a demonstration. It'll either blow everybody's mind or it will bomb. I said, what do you mean? He said, what do you mean? He said, what do you think I mean? I said, do you have enough 115? He says, that's not a problem. So I think part of what they're going to do, since I think they're going to, it won't be a full size replica, but I think they're going to have a device that literally flies.
Wow. Wow. There's
That's
a
now that's
bit
an
of
assumption.
disclosure.
That's an
Yeah,
assumption
I
I
get
made on
it. I
my
get
part.
it. You're theorizing on a hunch. I get it. And you know what? I always say, go with your gut instinct. That's probably where the truth will lie. You know things in advance when you focus that way. At least for me, I've always been that way, an intuitive, sensitive kind of like feeling that that comes over me. But that would be fascinating. And there's always been a lot of talk and speculation about Element 115, and he talked about it. And that all came true as well. As you say, he's always been focused. He's always been on the money. He's never changed this way. He's never turned left. He's never turned right. He's always had a direction, and it's never changed. With the exception of one thing, maybe you can answer this, because I don't hear everything, but I speculate on some things that I heard in the past saying that some of the things that we hold or have, wherever they are now or had been, that some of them were actually ancient.
Yeah,
These
well,
crafts.
Bob's sports model was recovered at an ancient site.
That's mind blowing, but I believe that
Oh,
because we know of the talk of the Vimanas.
well,
Um, I,
a good example now, besides being an airplane nut and an Area 51 nut, and I love astronomy. I was a docent up at Kitt Peak National Observatories for a couple of years. But I've always had a passion about uh, things that go bump in the night,
okay.
uh, and I've always been a firm believer, especially after meeting Bob and hearing from Ben Rich and other people, even my boss at State Staff in the Air Guard, Major General Wayne Gatlin. He chased a UFO in an F-94C in 1955. And every time they'd turn on their weapons radar, as soon as they locked on, the computer or the weapons radar would die. They pull reset the circuit breakers, try to lock on again. As soon as they lock on, the radar would die. So, but I was when I was working on gathering information for my Blackbird book, my dad lived in Tullahoma, Tennessee. He was director of engineering at the Arnold Air Force Station facility, the wind tunnel complex there in Tullahoma. And not far from him, 11 miles from him, is the home of Jack Daniels, Lynchburg, Tennessee. And Dave Fruhoff was an SR-71 pilot, and that's where he retired. And he was also a student pilot when he had to bail out of one of two SR-71 trainers, 957. So I wanted to interview him about what happened on when he had to leave, when he had to eject out of the Blackbird. And we got through that part. And I said, well, do you believe in UFOs? He says, they absolutely positively do exist. I said, you want to expand upon that? And I was figuring he was going to say no. He said, sure. So he said he was on a night mission out of Kadena, Okinawa in an SR-71. It was late 72, early 73. Vietnam was still a hot issue. He's at 78,000 feet, and Mach 2.7. He's heading due east. It's 11 p.m. at night. There's a 3/4 moon off the port side, and he gets a glint of something off his starboard side, the right side. And he said, it's not round. It has edges to it, but it's reflective. And he didn't want to open up his faceplate. He gets a lot of glare from the instruments in the cockpit. Right. They're not bad, but just enough where he can't look out the side, the side window of there in the canopy and see the stars. There's a billion stars up there. He was hoping he could see an area that didn't have any stars, so he can get a sort of a shape. But he didn't want. He refused to open up his visor because Murphy's Law says as soon as you open it up, you're going to have the windscreen's going to fail or something, and you're dead. I mean, it's that simple. So he gets on secure voice. He contacts Kadena, Okinawa, to see if there's another blackbird up. He said, no, you're up there by yourself. He said, well, I'm going to go take a look. So he advances the throttles, doesn't take his eye off it, a 10-degree bank, and he starts climbing and accelerating. Because at 2.7, sort of a sweet spot going from point A to point B, but when you're ready to go over target, you want to go at least Mach 3. So that's, and at 2.7, you're not thermally stressing the airframe or its subsystems because the airframe hasn't heated up that much yet. At 3.2, the average overall temperature of a blackbird is 520 degrees, which is hotter than your broiler in your kitchen at home. So Kadena told him, hey, you're up there by yourself. All of a sudden, his backseater said, hey, Dave, we have company. He said, yeah, I'm going to go take a look. So he's accelerating, climbing, and banking towards this object. He said when he was about a mile or so away from it and about still 1,000 or so feet below it, this thing took off at about a 30-degree angle of attack and left him in the dust like he was heading the other direction. He figures the top speed was Mach 12, Mach 16. And he lost track of it going through, he figures, between 180 and 200,000 feet. So fast forward, this is 72, 73 time frame. It's now 1979. He's retired. He has a Q clearance, and he gets a new job after retires. He is facility manager at Area 51.
Oh.
Yeah. And I says, well, what about the underground facilities? He says, they have underground facilities in the Nevada test site, but there are none at Area 51. And he said, when you first get there, even though he knew everybody, you just don't start asking questions. And he said he was here 5 years. He said after about a year, he was at the club after hours, and he was asking some guys that had been there forever. And he said, have we ever flight tested a craft that will do Mach 12 to Mach 16? Nope, not here. I asked him, did you ever hear any references to S4? And he says, yeah, I did. They said there was equipment that we transported in and unloaded, and it was put it on Humvees, and off it went, and the designation was S4. Same S4 that Bob works at. I have to assume that maybe that's true. So Dave's a firm believer in UFOs. Bill Fox, he called him Foxy. He was a flight test manager for U2. He was on the Tiger team for D21. He was in flight tests for the A12 and the YF12. And I asked Foxy years ago, it's before he passed away, do you believe in UFOs? He said, absolutely, positively do exist. But he wouldn't give me any details. And
that's kind of like the dilemma that we always land back up in. But I mean, you got this information from some of the highest and most important personnel and people, which says a lot. Hey, I wanted to ask you too, can you give any validation? This was another question. And I don't like to miss some of the questions, especially this one's pretty interesting. And I believe you talked about it. MIT, you actually know for a fact that Bob had some type of certificate.
He had a beautiful diploma on the wall when we went and had my film processed. Okay. I didn't stare at it. I was just, wow, that's an impressive looking diploma.
And one of the things, though, that they discredit him on.
If the government doesn't want you to exist, you don't exist.
Right.
His Social Security number, according to the federal government, our government of we the people, was never issued. Is that the same? Is that the same organization that issued Barack Obama's his Connecticut Social Security number?
Yeah, it could be. It
Yeah,
could be.
yeah.
They had to validate somebody to have a participate as an existence as a
Yeah.
representative for America, of course. Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting to know. Also, was there something that you might know about of a W-2?
Yes, that was
So that
that's,
exists as well. That he did absolutely. There was a W-2.
I had it in my back pocket when I was activated for Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And I mean, it was just, you never know when you're going to have an opportunity to find out something. And when I volunteered to go to Saudi Arabia for a year, I had a fatal attraction girlfriend I had to get away from. But I had my Bob's W-2 in my back pocket. And we had a slow day. I don't know what the deal was, but there was nothing for me to brief the reporters on. My job in the Pentagon during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I read absolutely every single message going to and from CENTCOM. What from eyes only to unclassified but proprietary, no public exposure. So I saw everything. And I read every single message going to and from. That was my job. Anything related to the Air National Guard or the Army Guard, I would pull, I would copy on a secure copy machine, stamp it, whatever the classification was, and then put it in a file in a secure filing cabinet that had a combination on it. And that's one particular day, everything was just slow. So I'm on the Pentagon computer and I'm trying to find Bob's work location, Department of the Navy. And there isn't anything, it was close, but nothing was exactly like it said in the W-2. So I got something was close. I went to Naval Investigative Services. They had their headquarters was in the Pentagon. So I went over. At the time I'm an E6. I have my light blue Air Force shirt on. I had a lot of ribbons. I'd been around for a long time. And I walk in, and the doors open, and there's a young Lieutenant JG sitting behind the desk. And I said, "Sir, can you tell me where this Department of the Navy is located?" And I hand him Bob's W-2. He looks at it, looks at me, and says, "Excuse me, Sergeant, I'll be right back." Gets up with Bob's W-2. He goes into the 2-star's office. He's in there for 10 or 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. He comes out and he says, "The Admiral will see you now." Now, those of you who have been in the military, those of you who have been enlisted and have had any dealings with general or flag officers know that no Navy Admiral 2-star is going to talk to or speak to a puke Air National Guard enlisted person. I mean, that's the attitude. So I go in there, I give him a real sharp salute. He doesn't say at ease. He said parade rest. So I'm standing there at parade rest, and he's shaking. I mean, his hands like this. He said, "Sergeant, I don't know where you got this, but if I ever see your face cross the threshold of my office ever again, you'll be the most sorriest son of a bitch NCO in the United States military. Do you hear me, Sergeant?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, with that, he said, "You're dismissed," as he puts Bob's W-2 in the shredder. I did an about face and went, whoa. if that wasn't validation, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's no verbalization that needs to be necessary to come along with that. That's pretty crazy. So we're learning a lot off you tonight. Definitely, for sure. And, you've done so much with all your books and everything, and now you're making a U-turn. As you turned 79 years old, or maybe when you turned 78, you shocked the hell out of me as I followed your life in many ways, and I have. And now, just by chance, I find out that you're ready to go and become an archaeologist and take on pyramids.
We
Um,
we had a team. We had a team. I didn't go because I had conflicting arrangements. My best friend in the whole wide world had knee replacement, and and by the time I got back, it would only give me 1 day home and then off to the jungles of Belize. But they cleared off Pyramid B. We sort of fell into it. Last April, 10 of us went down to Belize. We didn't know what we were going to do, but we had access to a 7,000 acre plot of land. And the owner of the property lives in Salt Lake, and he knows my buddy Jared. And he says, I know I have Mayan, if nothing else, rubbles or shell mounds, on the 7,000 acres. That's almost 10 square miles.
right, that's big.
Yeah, it's big. And so we initially went down to look at John's property. The first full day we're there, we're in southern Belize. We're at two pyramids that have already been, just the tops have been excavated, not down to ground level. And at Limnumpuit, it's about a mile and a quarter walk around on the top. And it rained a couple times. It's 87 degrees, and all of a sudden you're hot and sweaty. All of a sudden the sky opens up, but it's still 87 degrees. Now you're just wet. I have a very, very bad sense of balance. My auditory nerve was clipped on this ear. So I have no balance in my left ear or hearing, for that matter. And I'm a little bit wobbly sometimes. And I'm at the very end, I'm 10 feet from being off the pyramid. And there's a set of steps that were made by whoever built the pyramids, but they were narrow, and I knew I wanted a different route. And there was a path just going on the dirt going down. So I stepped over that, and all of a sudden I just face planted into a pile of pyramid rubble. And I got a large gash just below my knee and a puncture wound just above my ankle. Now, if you've been shaving and you cut yourself, a little bit of blood goes a long way when you're wet.
Right.
It goes. Now, if you have a lot of blood, it looks like there was a human sacrifice there. I mean, a little blood, a lot of blood, and raining hard. It looked like someone had been slaughtered. But it didn't really hurt. So as we're driving out of the village, we got bandaged up and we're heading out. There's a medical clinic right outside the main entrance to Limnumpuit. And we stopped in there, and there's a medical doctor. He's from Cuba. He looks at it and he said, well, it's nasty. He said, how'd you do it? And I told him. He said, this is result in stitches. So I got a total of 11 stitches. And 3 days later, we sort of fell into, we weren't sure what we were going to do. But one of a couple of the other people, there was 4 of us core, and then there was 6. They were sort of along for the ride. And they wanted to go see some waterfalls in this one little village. Well, it turns out this little village is the only one in all of Belize that has the authority over who excavates the pyramid that surrounds their village. And it is the largest pyramid complex in Belize. It's 305 acres. There's 5 pyramids. All the other sites are only 1 pyramid. There's some other outbuildings, but there's 5 pyramids there. And the reason why the village was given exclusivity versus the federal government of Belize, in the mid-1980s, they did a radar scan of the country of Belize to identify and mark and be able to control access to all the Mayan sites in the country. And there was a lot of them. But this one site, there were no roads near it. There was the village, but no roads. So they decided that there probably never will be a road going in because they're not looking that far ahead. So they turned over full control of who can authorize whomever to excavate and clear the pyramid and excavate all the overburden. Well, it turns out it was this particular village. And the village was cut off from the real world until they finally, in 2012, finally cut about a 4-mile road in through the jungle to the village. And that's where we ended up. We were back last November, again, breaking bread with the group. We met with the director of NISH, which is the National Institute for Culture and History for the country of Belize. And Belize is a weird little country. It's at the widest part, it's vertical. It's 68 miles at the widest part, and about 180 miles from the southern end to the north end. The official language of Belize is English. It used to be British Honduras. And the Brits took control of British Honduras back in the turn of the last century.
Yeah, occupying.
Yeah. So we've gotten the okay from them. They actually surveyed the site and told us what we can do. We're employing the villagers, and we're working to get fresh water, and we're working to get cell phone coverage because that's the only way they can communicate with anybody. And there's only one place that they can get a signal. They have to walk almost all the way out of the village, go up to Pyramid A near the parking lot, and you get some coverage. So we want to bring cell phone coverage into the village. We want to help them with clean water. And we want to be able to put something together that would allow the villagers not have to fork out $700 per kid to go to school. It's $700 a year. But when you're a subsistence farmer, $700 might as well be $7 million. And because they have no electricity, most of the families have 6, 7, or 8 kids. Because what do you do when the sun goes down? No TV, no radio, no internet. Well, I guess we go to bed. And one thing leads to another. So what we want to do, we're actually putting together, and it should be done in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to do the TV program, Curse of Oak Island. It's been on for 12, 13.
Yeah, I believe 12 seasons. I did talk to Marty Lagina recently, actually. That's pretty impressive. I'm waiting like everybody else for the big score, I guess, to speak. Is that kind of what you're going for there too? To help the culture?
But on Oak Island, they're drilling a hole or trying to excavate down where they think they may find something.
Right.
We're sitting on 5 minimum years old, 2,000-year-old Mayan pyramids that the biggest one has not been plundered in recent times. And it's the largest complex in Belize, if not Mesoamerica. The Pyramid G is 261 feet from the base to the top, which makes it the largest pyramid.
Wow, that is actually immense.
And the archaeologists and guides at the existing sites at Lubatam and Nimlimpuit, they're all graduate students in archaeology from the University of Belize, and I think they're working on their PhD. But their job, part-time job, is to be tour guides at the sites, and on both the sites, talking to 3 or 4 of the guides who are all archaeologists. He said, "We've come to the conclusion today that the pyramids aren't 2,000 years old. They now figure they're between 20,000 years old and 200,000 years old, and that the Mayans found them abandoned and repurposed them for their own use." Now, from just south of Mexico City to the northern part of Colombia, at its peak, there were between 10 and 20 million Mayans in that area. Now, in Nicaragua, a couple of years ago, they did a radar scanning of an area of 800 square miles, which is not a lot of land. I mean, it's not a big area, but 800 square miles. And it was just south of one of their big pyramids. And they were just looking for roads. They found 60,000 structures.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what happened to all the Mayans? I said, well, every dark-skinned person you see here is a Mayan. They're in Belize. He said that when Cortez and the Europeans came to Central America, the Mayans had nothing to protect them from the germs and whatever that Europeans were immune from, and it killed off an awful lot. They were also vicious people. If you pissed off your neighbor for some reason, and he was going to get even with you, he would not only kill you, he would kill everybody in your extended family, including all your pets. Anybody you're related to would be dead. Yeah. So that didn't help. Plus, they were terrible farmers. They tilled the ground to grow stuff until the ground became sterile. They never rotated crops. So they refer to most of Belize as a green desert. The only thing that grows there are native plants and shrubs and trees.
And you were able to use LiDAR to remove all that to actually pinpoint the areas of interest for the archaeological expedition.
We went through. They did a LiDAR scan of both pyramids A and B.
Okay.
There's 3 of them right together. There's a small one and then a real big one all by itself. That's Pyramid G. And that's the one we really want to go into, because you have to go all the way through the village to get to it. So there's no way that someone can clandestinely get in there without the villagers knowing it. And they said, to their knowledge, other than some villagers out there, there hasn't been any grave robbers, so to speak, or pillagers.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, I mean, we find so much buried in these jungles untouched. It's so enormous in ways too, but it's pretty spectacular here that there's 5 down there basically totally undiscovered, and you have a pretty good suspicion that there are things there that you'll be able to come up with artifacts of some type of history to prove history.
Well, at I think it was Lubatam, the first site we went to, the first excavated site, just to get an idea of what we're looking at. That's where they found the crystal skull.
Oh, okay, okay.
And it was also the basis for Indiana Jones, the most recent one, the crystal, the Curse of the Crystal Skull, or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't really remember the exact title to that movie. Pretty impressive. I'm trying to remember the guy's name that found that. Hilliard or something. God.
No, I think it was found in 1923.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it was just
I collect stuff like that. Here, I'll show you.
but it was oh Jesus. Yeah.
Wait,
The
no,
real
hold on.
and as oh my God.
I am pretty fascinated with those. I know the person that found it. It's just I'm I'm having a memory blow right now. But yeah, so that was actually found there. Which one? Site 3?
With and it was found in 1923. And it's, as the crow flies, it's only 15 to 18 miles from our site. We may, once we've cleared off all the vegetation off of 2 of the pyramids. When we go back in this fall, you don't want to be there in the summer. It's just too friggin' miserable.
And you got the rainy season.
Yeah, well, the rainy season, you're hot and humid and sweaty, and it's 88 degrees, and all of a sudden, or 87 degrees, and all of a sudden it starts raining. The rain is the same temperature as the air. So you go from being hot and sweaty to just being wet. And we're going back again, and we hope to have some big money put together by then, because we want to do a 12-part miniseries. Season 1, we have 5 caves that no one's ever been into, that on our last trip that I wasn't on this last month. Well, this month, they went there from the 1st to the 15th of May. They went into one of the caves, and he says, you go into this, and it's a cathedral room. It's huge. It's unbelievable. And no one knows it's there. The villagers do.
Yeah.
The one cave that people have actually gone to, figure not more than 20 people, not counting villagers, have been in the cave system since anybody can remember. So we have the caves, we have the waterfall, we have the pyramids. Pyramid C is the one a lot of people are interested in, but it's off limits. And it's not off limits for any reason that they're trying to pull something on us. There is a gigantic hive of Africanized killer bees, and no one wants to even get near it. So when the time comes, we'll have to go in there with full bee gear and flamethrowers, and to get in there.
Yeah, you have to be very careful with something like that. I hear about them. I don't want to know about them in a bad way. I understand you have to protect yourself, though.
Yeah. So we're going back again late summer, early fall, and we hope to have enough. Now we have enough video to do a whole season's worth of either 30-minute segments or hour-long segments. But we're putting together and we have an award-winning cinematographer went down there earlier this month, and with his drone and everything else. He said the imagery was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, Jared, who heads this up, said he was taken back how incredibly beautiful the cinematography was. And that's what Ian, that's his specialty. And
it's good that people are gifted that way, that can help out to bring the reality to the people on the other side of the glass of these screens. So you got a lot going on, and you're probably going to outlive us all. So you're going to just have a party. And how could you not want to wake up every day and know that you can be involved with something like this? I have a friend, you probably know Brad Olson. He's getting ready to take an expedition back to the Antarctic to do a little bit more investigative work on the stories that we know about of Berg and all those different things. And I can't wait to see where that goes, because he's so uh, astute to things when he gets involved and puts them into his mind. And it seems that you were so much the same way.
Well,
I've enjoyed this night immensely. I want to just say that to you also.
I enjoy being on anytime.
Great to hear that. Okay, do you mind if we ask a couple more questions there?
Sure.
All right, let me see what I got here. I had a couple written down. I was trying to look for them here. Maybe I did ask them already. I could have. It could be. Oh, okay. This is going to be a hard one. This is going to be a hard one because it's an audience of many thinking many different things, elements of different things. What are the chances of 100% of disclosure with ufology? And how damaging would it be? Do you think they would just come out and say it, or ever come out and admit to it?
Tim Burchett, who's Tennessee congressman, I think, congressional district 2. He is a real strong proponent of not disclosure, exposure. We all know that they're out there.
Right.
What they need is some exposure. He said there's things that he's seen that he was told beforehand, prepare yourself for what you're going to see. He said, majority of the population of this country is not ready to see what he saw. Said he wouldn't explain what. I don't know if it's terrifying or whatever, but it's. But I have there's been so many people have been destroyed because of their belief in UFOs. Bob Lazar is a good example. I asked Bob when everything started coming out. I said, "Are you gonna go talk to Congress?" I said, "The bastards had an opportunity 35 years ago, and they gave me the bird." Said they can go to hell. I don't care. I don't need Congress anymore. I've made my point, and it's been validated.
Yes,
many times over.
Yeah, that's very, very true. There's no taking that away from him, and I'm glad it's worked out that way, because he's a prime example of why people and us, you, everyone needs to stay strong and go forward. And if you have to face consequences of something you may not want to hear about, whether it's religious or something, then you're going to have to come to that point of acceptance, or keep moving forward in your everyday life and just know something more was there.
Yeah, one of the things that keeps civilized people civil is a firm belief in a supreme being, whether it be God, be Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Adam Smith, the local Sikh down at the 7-Eleven, whatever. And probably there's a lot of, not a lot of people, but a good number of people. The only thing that's keeping them from killing their neighbor or their wife or their mother-in-law or whomever is the fear of going to hell. And if all of a sudden God, as we've known it, turns out to be an alien, it's going the glue that holds civilized fabric together, the civilization of the world together, is the firm belief in a supreme being and the consequences for doing something that's against the Bible or against religion, such as murder. But if all of a sudden that is put by the wayside, and they find out that Jesus was here, but Jesus was from this planet somewhere else, or Mohammed or Buddha or whatever, if a majority of you and I can accept it, we're first world, but most of the world is third or fourth world as far as their view of the world and the ability to know what's happening in the world. I mean, there's places in Africa and even South America that they've never seen a white man. They've never there's still tribes in the Amazon that have never been met by Westerners.
Yeah.
And the Brazilian government, I think, frowns upon Westerners or Europeans going in there because these people have been isolated, and they're going to run into the same problems that the Mayans did when Cortez and the English invaders came in to Central America, Mexico, and South America, where their diseases, which they were immune to, killed off majority of the population. And they don't want to do that with some of there's a few tribes that are still protected by international decree that you stay away from them. And those one of them is the Yamamas or something like that. They're in northern part of Brazil. But with the stuff we're doing in Belize, somehow the word got out. Jared has been in contact with the just retired director of the interior for the country of Peru, and they've invited us to come on down, and they have some archaeological sites that have not been touched and are not under control of the major big universities.
Right.
And we might have the ability to start excavation down there as well once Belize is up and running. So this is
wow, that's gonna be enormous. How are you gonna? It's just so much to take on when you think about the complexity of the enormity of what you're. But I'm happy for you. I couldn't be happier. I mean,
people say
I'm glad that you have that motivation. And I'd like to volunteer to carry your bag if I could. I would like to do.
Well, Jimmy Church said, when you go back to Belize, I want to go with you. I said, I'll pay my own way. I won't be a burden.
Yeah, but he's afraid. Don't tell him I said this. I think he's afraid of small spaces. So if he would have to crawl through something small, it could be an obstacle.
Well, I'm the same way. I could never be a tunnel rat in Vietnam.
Well, we know that they existed upon the technologies that was used, and again, I'm blown away that the fact now that the reality is coming out that the possibility of a lot of these megalithic structures are between 20 and 200,000 years old plus, and refurbished. And when you go to Göbekli Tepe and places like that, you can see how that actually worked. That there were different levels of foundations applied as if they found it and they reapplied their own method. And you can see it in the construction being different from the original level of the foundation to the secondary level of a new foundation to a tertiary, and we keep going. And I think that what you're doing here now, one of the things that blows my mind is, why did the people of this place not have interest in their own history?
I mean, there's stuff written on stone tablets that tell stories,
right?
And because it's a fairly closed society, the Mayans, there's a lot of stories that have been told by grandma to her children for 10 or 15 generations till today. That's one of the reasons why in the country of Belize they have an organization, NISH, National Institute for Culture and History, that is there to preserve and expand upon it. And the fact that we're employing villagers.
Yeah.
We employed over a 10-day period, we employed 140 villagers. There were 10 crews They only worked one day. Each crew worked one day, but we had 14 villagers in each group. And they cleared, I don't know how in the hell they did it. They cleared Pyramid B in record time. I mean, I've been to the top of it. And it's just amazing what they were able to do. And then Tom Elmore, who's he's one of our core group. There's 6 of us total. He owns a company that specializes in LiDAR. And he did a LiDAR scan of both pyramids A and B. And what it does, you hold a staff, you have a thing, it looks like a 2-liter bottle of Coke or something upside down, and it's silver, and it's on a 6-foot stick. And you go every 30 feet, you go stand there. It goes out and looks. It's sending out almost 200,000 things per second, looking to go around leaves and bushes and stuff like that. So you can literally eliminate trees and brush and whatever. Now, dirt is solid, so it's not going to look in too deep if it's just looking at dirt. But once we have pyramids A and B cleared and pyramid G cleared, and then we get the permission, we have to have an archaeologist on site, which we will have. We're going to we'll get the permission. We're the only non-university affiliated group that's ever been given the permission to excavate an archaeological site.
Yeah, that's awesome, because usually the hand's always in it, the control of the thumb, so to speak, grant money, and then science becomes, and then the Smithsonian shelves get a little fuller, or the elites that matter somewhere else that look for these things, and there's many that do. So that's fantastic, actually, that you were able to put this together and expedite the speed that you guys have done. How many are there of you altogether? You said 10 or 11?
No, that was the first trip, but most of them were worthless. Now there's 6 of us that are the core group, maybe 7. But we have a Hollywood cinematographer, an award-winning one. We have a director that has won all sorts of awards for documentaries. We have an educational segment where we're going to link up with, and we're already part of the organization that's going to link up with 82,000 school districts on teaching kids what LiDAR is and what we're going to start excavating. They can see it in real time. They could ask questions in real time when we're doing it. This is going to be truly incredibly exciting.
It's going to be almost like a live documentary.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Just like you and I are right here, except much bigger, on a bigger scale.
Yep.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And we're going to, once we start excavation, if people want to volunteer and come down and help with the excavation, most of it's manual labor. We're going to allow that. Once all the vegetation is removed and the trees are removed, the trees are destroying the pyramids, is what they're doing, the root system. But once we do that, all the overburden, we're going to go through and we're going to sift through 100% of it for at least three of the 5 pyramids in the short term. So, and when I asked Alfredo's brother, who is in charge of maintaining the making sure that there's no vandals and whatever on the pyramid complex, I asked him, this is back last April, I said, Jose, I said, if I had the money today and it's okay, we're going to clear Pyramid B, when could you have a team together? He said, at sunrise tomorrow morning. They need the work. So we're going to employ as many of the villagers as we can. We hope in the documentaries, they make a lot of money if we get into the right place. And
Right.
the people in Hollywood that we're working with can get it to the right place and to the right people. And there's a lot of buzz about what we're doing in Hollywood and in the TV industry. It's just, but we want to be able to pay the school to educate every child, not just one child in a family, because it's $700 per kid.
Yeah.
For the school year.
Right. Which is very affordable in one way to hear about it, but we're talking about a place of a third and fourth world country that just needs to utilize it, and it brings the cost down in a lot of ways that way. But I think your ideas that you have are going to work magnificently. I really believe that because you're going to reach a spectrum of children of different ages, creating an interest of science and technology at work right in front of them, which, you know, may actually then influence some of these younger people in that country to start looking for what else could be there that you're going to introduce to them that they already have right in front of them. So I mean, to me, that's a very impressive thing that you guys are all doing. And with the artifacts, will there be rewards to the community and things, if anything like that are to be found? And also, if we were ever to find out that it's not Mayan related or Aztec related, and it's something else, would that be also offered publicly to actually say, look, this is who actually built these structures?
Well, because it is one of the largest complexes in Mesoamerica, they found Bob Lazar's sports model at an ancient site.
Right.
There's no reason in the world why there couldn't be we couldn't find one at our ancient site.
Yeah, true. I mean, you find ships in some of these land of the king type places where, you know, they go to the afterlife with so much, and I guess that ship was one of the things that was part of them to go to the afterlife that they dug up. When you hear the sports model, it doesn't almost make any sense, but I totally get where you're coming from. Do we have any factual information, or was Bob given factual information that particular craft that he worked on, the sports model, was an actual dug up element?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what the documentation he read and what he was told, that was recovered from an ancient site
of Amana. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So
yeah,
they are real, everybody. They really are real. And here, I'm going to share with you something. You've been such a great guest. I'll take this. I'm going to give you a little something about what I encountered. And I've had several, and they are UFOs. I've been with family, my daughter. It's always on my mountaintop. I talked to all my guests about it, and being that I know that you are one who is open-minded and it can accept a truth, I'm going to give you mine. So I'm up at my wood shop. I do carving with chainsaws and make little bears and birds sometimes. Just a place to get away from. So, you know, have some relief. Ride the Harley. We'll just say there. We'll just say that. But or the quads, whatever. So it's kind of like the fun place. Well, I'm sitting outside, and it's early evening one evening, and I always watch across the pasture and the neighbor's pasture, like for bears and stuff and deers, what's going on. There's been horses and goats over there and whatever. And I had like this 3-trigger Black & Decker spotlight for spotting deer at night and so forth. And I'm not a big avid hunter, but I have one. And I think I have them around because the girls like them when they go outside because, you know, the spook of the nature kind of thing.
Yeah.
The darkness, it's spooky. So I'm playing with the light, and I've always seen things in the skies here. I've always talked with the family about it, friends that come up. I'm always watching. Some people come up. So anyway, I'm shooting this thing across the field and I'm just looking around and I decide, oh, okay, I think I see a satellite. Well, I don't pull out the phone to try to track it to make sure. I just start clicking my light. And so it has like low, medium, high, off, or it goes into some infrared light. It's cheap as hell, but it gets the job done if you're looking in front of you. So anyway, I flash this up into the sky a couple times and I put it down and I'm just sitting at the fire. It is evening, it is darkness. And suddenly out of the corner of my eye, something, or just instinctively, something tells me to look up above the parking lot. And I have a pretty big parking lot when you pull into this place. I truly do. And I look up and above me is a round beacon light. And I mean, I don't want to say ginormous. And it's like a half of a basketball. It's like a milk glass, a frost glass that almost looked like it had fragments of like cracks or something in it. I don't even know how to describe it, like crackled glass or something like that. And I don't know why, but I reached on, I'm right-handed. I reached out my right hand. I remember exactly what I did. And I thought first I'm still like in awe about what am I seeing, because I could have threw a rock and hit it and not had a hard time throwing the rock at it. I flashed the light. It goes through its cycle, low, medium, high, off. And this thing illuminates bright. It doesn't hurt my eye. It comes back down, it redims. So I do it again. Low, medium, high. Again, I could throw a rock and hit this thing, and it took up the entirety of the parking lot, pulling in driveway, which was, I'm just going to give you a rough estimate, 40 foot wide by 65 to 70 feet deep from the road off to the front of the garages. So it's like kind of it was all right there. I did it again, lights up, draws back down and dims itself, but stays at a soft light. And in that moment, I started to think, and what the hell am I getting myself into? It was just, I got creeped out. I'm not going to lie to you. I got creeped out. And not only that, I started calling back to the house. Get out here and look at this. Nobody heard me. After the fact, I'm like, why didn't you guys respond to me? And a lot of people said, well, you might have been taken. No, I don't remember nothing like that. I had Maria Wheatley on. I think she does. She's a fascinating individual, and I think she does regressions and stuff. I'm supposed to do something at Stonehenge in May with her and Dennis Stone up in New Hampshire, Stonehenge. I might ask her to do it because I really want to have a more vivid memory, even if it took a couple times to go through it, because where I remember getting to, and I don't think there was ever a moment I don't remember. It was just, I don't understand why nobody could hear me yelling for them to come out and look at this.
They'd probably hit the mute button and sound wouldn't travel.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I can't explain that. I know it's a reality, and it's not like it's a long story. It's as long as I said it, and I probably stuttered more than I got at as fast as it occurred. So maybe a 2-minute incident. What made it come down? The fact that I shot that up towards what I think was a star-looking object moving in a direction that didn't make sense. Possibly a satellite, but not a Starlink satellite, because I studied that stuff. It wasn't that. And there's always this one area over my place where they either just suddenly turn on in that one spot or they're coming out of a spot. I don't know what that is because I'm not up there to investigate it, and I'll never get up there to investigate it. But there is a spot over me, and I don't know if it's a ley line that they follow, of energy, of source. I don't know, but they always light up in that one area. It's just like they appear and then they go about their mission. I don't know.
Where are you physically located?
Armstrong County, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Carn City.
Which one?
Carn City, Armstrong County, Pennsylvania.
Where
right
is that?
outside of Pittsburgh,
Oh,
1
okay.
hour drive north.
Okay. I've
And we've had several things up here, incidents. We saw glitters fall from the sky, and I've been told that those types of things are known as some type of release of energy when UFOs have movement. I actually was able to bump across while watching TV a show where MUFON was doing a documentary only 30 miles from me. And the lady that was in the documentary um, described the same thing that me and my daughter saw. And my daughter was about 11 or 12 at the time. And we didn't really see a craft. And I want to be specific to my story. I can only outline to you what I saw was the light that night. I couldn't tell if the object was bigger than the light, except for the fact when I looked back up, tried to find out why no one came outside, and I looked in the same direction, I then saw stars. And I even went and tried to compare where I was sitting as to where it was. And one of the other things that really irks me, because I love looking at what's in the sky, and that's why I called this show that, is the fact that, 24/7, I mean, it's almost a constant, even at night. They're up there applying this mist, we'll call it, because, they'll put me in Facebook jail or something for talking about it, or YouTube will ban me again. For the chemtrails, to say the least. I mean, even in front of the moon, you'll see them just put lines like, in front of the sun. They do it where the moon is and all these things. And I think they don't want us to see something that possibly, maybe, and I'm not saying that it's the same as my experience, but maybe we are really working on a higher technology now in Pennsylvania, and people should be looking here, because we're going through skyquakes. Linda Moulton Howe talks about them. I've experienced them. I've heard them. It's like sonic boom, something coming in. And I know that these are not the things that are permissible in our areas, but they're so loud at times, and with such force, things on your shelves can lightly vibrate.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's our own or if it's theirs, but what I experienced that night was that. And like I said, I've had a few things that I've seen, and I keep looking up, but they keep blocking it also.
I'm out every night with my dog, and I live in Oro Valley, Arizona, which is a northern suburb of Tucson, and we don't have any streetlights. And when it gets dark, you can see the Milky Way. I mean, it's right there. If you live in a big city or anywhere there's a lot of ambient light, you're not gonna be able to see that stuff. So
Right.
yeah, I'm gonna have to call it quits here in a minute.
Oh, please, no, that's okay. You don't know. I
Yeah.
understand totally. I've been honored to have you on. I thank
Well,
you
I'm
so much.
delighted to be on. You want me back on? You let me know when.
Okay.
I'd be more than happy to come back.
All right. And if you need a water boy for that trip, you keep me in mind as things keep going. I wouldn't mind coming down. I can't say I could commit to the whole thing, but if you need a helper for a couple of weeks or something, I need a vacation. I can go down and work a bit.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
All right. You have a pleasant evening. Thank you so much, and have
Michael,
a great Memorial.
it was fun. I enjoyed every minute of it. You have a good one. You have the long weekend is not over yet, so you enjoy yourself, and I will talk to you next time.
Okay, brother.
All right.
All right. You take care.
Will do. You too. Adios.
Adios. Wow, that was very interesting. You'd like to end out shows sometimes with ufology in place that way, as I did, because of some of the scenarios that were brought up and that we talked about. If you missed some of it, you're going to have to go back and hear it all. We talked about Area 51. We talked about Edwards Air Force Base, and the Nevada Test Site, Groom Lake, S2, S4, S10, Victoria Peak, Nevada Test Site, Skunk Works, Edwards, Ben Rich, yes, Bob Lazar, John Lear, the man knows everybody and more. 29 books. How impressive is that? 29 books, plus a 27-year military career. Rode a Harley for 50 years. Just excellent, excellent human being. And he's been on every top show and radio show and podcast. Art Bell, Richard Dolan, hundreds and thousands of views and everything else. I'm so grateful that he took the time to come on and support What's in Disguise and shared some of his things, going and from where he started out as a young man to where he is now. Going to go to Belize. Can you believe it? And gets permission granted to go and excavate and, for archaeological purposes, these specific megalithic pyramidal structures. Who built them? I don't know. I don't think he does either. As we do know, when we look at history and we talk to each other about things, everything is like recarnation or repurposed or refurbished. Cultures and age and time. You take 100-year-old home, you buy it because it needs work, and you make this big scenario to do out of what you're going to do to it, and you wind up doing it. I mean, I'm sitting in one of those palaces right now, an old funky house. I mean, if you'd checked it out when this room was in the distressed way that it was prior to as it looks now, and I don't know, it may not look fabulous, but I put my time into it, and it was a long, tedious task. And I do believe cultures did that. So that's going to be fascinating, but also making sure that they give back for what they're doing to the culture there and Belize on these locations. And it fascinates me. So, the best thing to do is to go back to the past, to the beginning of this show, and listen to it to the end, like you are right now. And let's see what we got going here. Show me. What do you want me to show you, brother? Oh, show us. How's that? Did I do okay? Slaymaker. So I won't talk about Jeff Bull, but I can show you angels, UAPs, and angels of God. Well, yeah. Hey, I mean, I love talking about all aspects of everything. I take nothing off the table. I welcome all different types of information. I think it's good. But I also do think in ways that the government is holding back, that the Vatican has held back and controlled. I also think that we're looking at scenarios like that that don't allow us to ever know all the truth. And for some, you may be perfectly 100% Slaymaker Thomas. You may be 100% right, and everything else is wrong. But then, I mean, if the truth came on, how would you react to the other part of the scenario if everything you thought was a reality is no longer that reality? That everything that we have been taught is all because it was placed to be taught that way. We don't know. I mean, there's commonalities amongst everything, and discipline breaks up down because of it. Discipline just falls apart. That's the way I look at it. But I do welcome in all different types of conversations and possibilities, because that's all we really have to work with. Theories of possibilities. And that's the guy I am, Michael Anthony. That's why I do the different types of shows that I do. And we had a fabulous show this week where we talked about Dogman and Bigfoot. It's like one of the biggest shows on Facebook, to be honest with you, with Daryl Denton. So, and that was remarkable. It was a great show. So all topics are always brought in and welcome. Also want to say hi to you, Joe Fox. I always appreciate Slaymaker, play the video. I wish I could. I got to go offline in 1 minute. But what I can do is I'll copy it and I can paste it to my page for you. I got less than that. I got like 30 seconds left. That's the 2-hour cut. and it's a holiday, and I made a promise. So I got to keep my word. William Grant, thank you for coming in. Jeannie Bucky, thank you for coming in. Kingdom Small Time, thank you, brother. Appreciate you always. Susan Haddix, to mention a few. Not a really big thing tonight for such a huge man, but that's okay. I had a great time, and we'll get it out there. If you can help me get it shared to your groups or anything where people might have interest in this type of subject matter, please do. And I got 30 seconds, and it's going to end. I had this pre-timed. I'm sorry, but I will. Since you got that up there, I will copy paste that somehow and get it to play for you, brother. Okay. And in the meantime, have a blessed holiday weekend. Remember to give thanks. Be thankful, as I am. I know we all are, for the ones that never made it back home and paid the price to give us our freedoms. Never forget it. You guys have a blessed weekend. I'll be on and offline. Take care.